Mr. President. Colleagues, I know we've had a long day. We've had a lot of debate on this issue, and it strikes me that there are a few things that have gone unsaid, and so I rise to say them. Michigan's auto no-fault law is not a new experiment. It's a 43-year-old policy. It's a policy that has been tested, as we have heard today, through many court challenges. It's a policy that has gone before the voters of the state twice in ballot initiatives, and twice the voters of the state, by margins of more than 60%, rejected the types of amendments to that policy that, frankly, are sitting in this bill before us today. More than 60% of our constituents statewide said, leave no fault alone. There's much that we must do to address high auto insurance rates, and particularly in our core urban areas. You've heard those arguments made eloquently by my colleagues throughout their statements. But we can't forget, for a lot of people, no fault works. No fault works for those people who have a catastrophic accident, and it has worked to create a system of rehabilitation centers that give people a second chance at life, and they are some of the best rehabilitation centers in this entire country, hands down. They've been developed because of the support that No Fault provides. And we can't forget that No Fault right now is a system that is working with user fees. The MCCA determines a fee, we pay it. Claims are paid out of the MCCA based on those fees, and if it's not enough, they raise the fees. We've seen that happen often, over and over again. And right now, that system bears those costs. Now, you've heard colleagues refer to unfunded liabilities that might exist under that system, but frankly, we don't know that that exists because those books are not transparent, because there is no ability for us as lawmakers or citizens to review what happens there. And nothing in this bill before us today that changes that. So we don't know if the unfunded liability is $1 or as high as the billions that were referred to by colleagues who spoke before me today. We don't know that that's true. But what we do know is true is that no-fault system makes people's lives a lot better. And we know that no fault means that people don't end up in long-term nursing home beds that are paid for by Medicaid. What we know is that system covers those people's experiences, helps them put their lives back together, and provides them care should they need it for the rest of their lives. I don't very often stand at this microphone and talk about my personal life. I stand at this microphone and I talk about the values that I have, I talk about the passions that I have, I talk about my constituents, but I don't talk about my life. I don't know if you remember where you were on July 6th, 1983, but I do. Because on July 6th, 1983, I wanted to go to the store with my sister, and my parents made me stay home. And I was mad because I wanted to go, because my older sister had been like a mom to me while my mother went through school to better her life, to change our family's life. And I wanted to go to the store with my sister, who had just graduated from college and just had her graduation party, was getting ready to go away to school. And on July 6, 1983, when I was not on the passenger side, her car was broadsided by a semi. Police officers who came to the scene said, anyone in that passenger seat would have been dead, could not have survived. Her body was pushed so far by the semi that it ended up between the steering wheel on this side and the door, the car door. I remember at 11 years old, not understanding no fault, not understanding car insurance, not understanding what was going on, being brought to an emergency room, sitting with my best friend, partner in crime, and little 8-year-old sister, and overhearing things like, "We have to let them say goodbye. She won't make it through the night." I overheard them saying, "She'll never walk again. She'll never talk again. She'll never feed herself. We have to put her in a long-term care facility and let her go." My sister was in a coma for more than 4 months. She had injuries that were, you almost couldn't list the number of injuries she had, the number of doctors she had to see, because she had broken arms, broken legs, broken ribs, punctured spleen, punctured lung, broken jaw, facial surgeries. The imprint of the semi-truck was on the side of her face when I saw her for the first time. She didn't go to college. She was supposed to go to college. In that moment, she stayed in a nursing home. She went to a rehabilitation center, and it took 5 years to put her life back together. But because of no fault, my parents didn't have to sit there and worry, did they have to sue somebody to get her coverage of her medical needs? My parents didn't have to worry that her bills were going to be paid. All they had to worry about was how to take care of their 3 other daughters while their oldest clung to her life. Now, if you met my sister today, who nearly 30 years later is married and has 3 children, and did go back to college and got the degree that she wanted to get at the college she wanted to go in, and is a voting constituent of our colleague from the 29th district, you would never know. You would never know. You would never look at her and say, this woman's life was altered, her path was changed forever because a semi ran a red light and broadsided her car. But I can guarantee you, my parents did not have the resources to chase anyone to pay those bills. My parents did not have the resources to try to connect the dots if no fault had not been there as a safety net. And no one could have ever imagined things like 20 years later, literally 20 years after that first day in the hospital, she was still having surgeries related to that accident that happened in 1983, because the ongoing impacts to her health of those injuries was ongoing. And so our colleagues have risen today and said, this doesn't go as far as some other bills we've had. It doesn't put caps, it doesn't provide limits that people, can bump up against, and it doesn't go as far as a complete gutting or a complete overhaul or a complete repeal of no fault. But I can guarantee you that the cracks that start today undermine the system forever. And if you start telling healthcare providers and hospitals what they have to take as a reimbursement for the services that they provide, as we've seen already, there will be healthcare providers and there will be hospitals who say, we cannot participate in the system anymore. We can't take this coverage anymore. We can't provide these services at this reimbursement rate. And I don't want anyone's family, not any one of yours, not any one of our constituents, to go through something like my sister went through without the safety net of no fault. It changed her life forever, that accident. But because of no fault, she has a great life. So I urge you to think long and hard before you push the button, red or green. Think about this. It's 43 years. The people have twice, more than 60% of them said, don't do this, don't take away this unprecedented benefit. Like my other colleagues who've spoken before me today have urged, particularly very eloquently my colleague from the 2nd District, let's go back to the drawing table and say, if there are things we need to do to make the system better, to protect those whose costs are way too high, let's find those answers together. I guarantee you these are not the answers. And I hope that you will vote no on this bill and join us in finding a solution that addresses the needs of lowering auto insurance rates without getting rid of a benefit that means the difference between quality of life and death. Thank you, Mr. President.